Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaskar. In second lecture on the Registration Act 1908, we'll discuss further more sections and interesting discussion on the Registration Act 1908. Let us give a look on the topic we are going to cover. Requirement as to registration. Section 19 to section 22 deal with this discussion. Time of presentation for registration, section 23 to 27 deal with this. Place of registration, we'll discuss place of registration under section 28 to 31. Presenting document for registration, it is dealt in section 32 to 35. The refusal of registrar is there in section 71 to 77. And what are the effect of registration and non-registration under this act is deal in section 47 to 50, and the duties and powers of registering officer are there in section 51 to 70. And finally, we see the conclusion of our two lectures on the Registration Act 1908. Though we already have had discussed about the outline of or the structure of the Registration Act 1908, you can see on your screen that this act consists 93 sections, 15 parts, one schedule, and it is extended to the whole of India. Now let us begin with the discussion on this lecture. So after our discussion till section 18 in our first lecture number 3, today we'll discuss further what are the requirements as to registration. As I just mentioned that section 19 to 22 of the Registration Act 1908 deal with the requirement as to registration. So far section 19 of this act is concerned, it discusses document in the language not understood by the registering officer. Now this is emphasizing on the language. So if any document which is duly presented for registration be in the language which the registering officer does not understand and which is not commonly used in the district, he shall refuse to register the document unless it be accompanied by a true translation into a language which is commonly used in the district and also by a true copy. See, if a person is in Delhi or maybe in northern state of India and he is producing a document maybe in Tamil or maybe in a Kannada, so the registering officer might not be acquainted with that language, and hence if we don't understand the language of that document, he may be refused to register that document until and unless a true translation of that document is not provided. And that's why the section 19 emphasizes that if document presented for registration is not in the language which the registering officer understands, he may refuse to register that document until that document is accompany the translation which is understood by the registering officer and which is commonly used in that district. So purpose of this section is just to ensure that whatever is the content in that document is understood by the registering officer. He understands that what is written in that document. So he can read, he can understand the document. And secondly, to avoid the fraud or misrepresentation or error in registration, this section is important. And then it is also important to make sure that this document is later accessible, readable and verified by any other official or the court later. Now section 20, it discusses the documents containing interlineations, blank, erasers or alteration. So whatever is document is presented in the court, this document need to be neat and clean. So there is no overwriting, there is no interlineation should be there. The subsection 1 said the registering officer may, in his discretion, now this is his discretion, we'll understand this further. In his discretion, either he refuse to accept for registration any document in which any interlineation, blank, erasers or alteration appear, unless the person who is executing this document, he attests with their signature or initials such interlineation, blank, erasers or alterations. So if the registering officer, he is having any document, he shall at the time of registering the same, he make a note to the register of such interlineation, blank, erasers or alteration. So imagine there is a sale deed of land which is submitted in the office for the registration, and in that sale deed, at the name of a buyer, the name is corrected, it is corrected, and then the name of some other person is written there. Imagine at the place of the amount, the earlier written amount is corrected with some overwriting, and that amount is also changed. Now, the name of the buyer is changed by overwriting. The sale deed of the land is submitted for registration. Now, the sale amount has an eraser, new figure is inserted. Some clauses have interlineation in between line. So, the consequences of this is either the registering officer, he will check whether the parties have signed these or initialed next to each changes. If not, then he may refuse registration. But if they have mentioned their initial on that changes, on the eraser, on the interlineations, or on the part where they have made some changes, if the initials are there, then the registering officer, he may accept that document, but it is purely his discretion for the same. So if accepted, record of these changes in the registration book will be mentioned. Now, subsection 2 said, if registering officer registered any such document, he shall at the time of registering the same make a note. Now he has to make a note regarding that alteration, regarding that erasers, blank, or regarding that interlineation in the register of such interlineations. Now imagine that sale deed of land is submitted, overwritten, eraser, new figure inserted, and in this scenario, he has to be mentioned that changes. Now, see section 21. Section 21 discuss description of property and maps or plans. So it means at the time of registering a document, description of property and a map or a plan is also very important. Subsection 1 said, no non-testamentary document relating to immovable property. Now this is important, that this non-testamentary document is relating to immovable property shall be accepted for registration unless it contain a description of such property. So the detailed description is required sufficient to identify the same. It means to identify the property, the detailed description of the property is very, very important. Subsection 2 said, houses in the town shall be described as situate on the north or the other side of the street or road to which they front, and by their existing and former occupancy, and by their numbers if the house in such street or road are numbered. So for example, if the house is having a name like the flat number 71, maybe mall apartment on the mall road. So the house in town, the flat number is given to that house, the society has a name, and this society is on the side of the road which is known as a mall road. So house in town shall be described as this situate on the north or other side, maybe by the flat number, maybe by the name of the society, and maybe by the former occupancy and the existing occupancy, and by their number if the house is having. Subsection 3 said, other houses and land shall be prescribed by their name. So this is about the houses in town. This is about a document of the property which is immovable property. Now subsection 3 said other houses and lands shall be described by their name if any and as being territorial division in which they are situated and by their superficial content, the roads and other properties onto which they existing occupancy, and also whenever it is practicable by reference to a government map or survey. Subsection 4 said no testamentary document containing a map or plan of any property comprised therein shall be accepted for registration unless it is accompanied by the true copy of a map or a plan. So what does it mean? That if a general description through that map or the planning of the house is given, that might be not acceptable by the officer. So proper map and plan is required to provide for any property, any document which is of a non-testamentary document. So in case such property is situated in several districts, by such number the true copies of the map or plan they are equal to provide. So a number of such districts is also need to be mentioned in that document. So the property must be clearly described. There should be no general description. Specific description is acceptable. General description is not acceptable. Now, further explanation to this clause. See, in town, the house must be described. As I said, house number on the side of the road, previously occupied by Mr. Sharma, now Mr. Verma. All these detail is required for this clause C. And if it is in rural area, then the name of the adjoining neighbor need to be mentioned. As I mentioned this an example that the plot is situated in Khasra number 42 and it is 2 biga situated in the village. For example, we are taking a name of the village Buntur, Tehsil Kullu, district Kullu, and it is bounded on the north by the state highway, on the south by the land of one Mr. Ramesh, which is shown in the survey map of 2011. So this clause D said that if document include a map or a plan, then a true copy of a map or a plan is required to be submitted with that document, and not a journal map from which is download from the official website. That doesn't work. The true copy of the map and the map is required to be submitted. Section 22, it discusses about the description of houses and land by reference to the government map or surveys. So it further complement the discussion there in section 21, where it is in the opinion of the state government practicable to describe houses, not being houses in towns, and land by reference to a government map or a survey. Government may, by rule made under this act, require that such houses and lands shall for the purpose of section 21 be so described. So if it is practically possible, these houses need to be described. Subsection 2 said any rule which is made under subsection 1, failure to comply with the provision of section 21 subsection 2 or subsection 3 shall not disentitled or document to be registered. So if the description of the property to which it relates is sufficient to identify that property, it means that if the document the exact situation, I mean the khata number or the measurement of land is given, but what is on the side of a north of that property, or in whose adjoining who is the adjoining owner of the adjoining property, if it is not mentioned in that document, it is absolutely okay. The document can be registered even in that. So it's not that the general description is acceptable. It is about that if that information is sufficient to identify the property, then it's okay. Document can be registered with that information also. So further, referring to this discussion, if no such rule exists, then failure to follow section 21 subsection 2 or 3 will not bar registration, as I said. So this description is if sufficient to identify the property. Moving further, section 23 talk about the limitation, time limitation. Now, why I am saying that time for presenting document other than the will? Because this section is imposing a bar that you have to be, present the document within this specific time period. Now, when you give a reading to section 23, it is mentioned, no document other than a will shall be accepted for registration unless it is presented within the time period of 4 months from the date of its execution to the proper registering office, subject to the section 24, 25 and 26. So I mentioned here that section 23, it is talking about the time limit for registration. So what if the document is, there is execution of document, so the next step is now document need to be registered. But it's not like that you, once the execution take place, then we go on a rest mode and then we'll decide that okay fine, I'll register this document later. Section 23 impose a bar. No, you have to be register this document after execution within the time slot of 4 months. See, the time within which the property is registered shall be executed by the transferee. So whenever there is a transfer of immovable property, that is the transfer due to a sale deed, the mortgage, the lease, gift or any other mode prescribed in that way. So such transfer is to be registered for the benefit of transferee within the 4 months from the date on which the transfer has been executed. Now let us understand this with the help of some example. If there is a sale deed, now sale deed is executed on 1st January 2025. And what is the time period? We just discussed that this is 4 months, within the 4 months. So if it is executed on 1st Jan, the 4 month ends, it complete on 30th April 2025. It means that it must be presented for registration on or before 30th of April 2025. Now second example is of a court decree. So there is a final decree in a civil suit and this decree is passed on 1st of March 2025. Now what is the time period? If you start it from 1st of March till 30th of June 2025. So it means that the party have 4 months to present it for registration from 1st March 2025 to 30th of June 2025. So within this time period or within this time span, the parties are supposed to be get it registered. So if the decree is appealable and no appeal is filed, the time count from the date it becomes final. Now section 25, it discusses that what happened. Now this time period is 4 months. So person has to be registered, the sale deed executed within the 4 months. Now because of some unavoidable situations or maybe because of some medical reasons, he failed to comply with the provision which is given in section 24. Now let us see what happened. Section 25 manage if there is delay in presentation is unavoidable. And subsection 1 said, if owing to some urgent necessity, there was something which was unavoidable accident. So necessity, unavoidable accident, any document executed or copy of a decree or order made is not presented for registration till after the expiration of the time herein before prescribed in that behalf, the registrar, in cases where the delay in presentation does not exceed 4 months, may direct that on payment of a fine not exceeding 10 times the amount, the proper registration fee, such a document shall be accepted for registration. But any application for such direction, it may be lodged with a sub-registrar, and once this application is lodged in sub-registrar's office, now the sub-registrar will forward this to the registrar's office and then the registrar will take the decision on that. So Section 25, it is providing a kind of a grace period in exceptional situation, necessity, unavoidable accident, or because of some medical urgency. If the person was not appear for the registration of document, then Section 25 provide him in extraordinary situation. The grace period is provided there. So basically what it do? It ensure party do not lose their right due to some genuine or unavoidable delay. So registrar may allow late registration only if delay does not exceed 4 additional months. So what does it mean? That he has time period of 4 months to register plus the 4-month time period which is given. So it is total 8 months, and that is a sufficient time from execution to register the document. Now let us take one example. A sale deed is executed on 1st of January 2025, and due to sudden illness of both the parties, it was not presented within the 4 months. So from 1st January, it's Feb, March, April, January, Feb, March, April. So it should be on 30th of April. So due to sudden illness of both parties, it was not presented within the 4 months. An application is made on 1st of June 2025. But this 20th of June 2025 is within that extended time period of 4 months. Extended time period of 4 months. So it is not the additional 4 months. This is the within the time slot of additional 4 months. The registrar, if satisfied with the reason, he may accept it on payment of fine. He may accept it on the payment of fine. Now section 23A, it discusses re-registration of certain document. Especially it is about the title deed. So sometime a document require the registration, may be accepted for registration by a registrar or sub-registrar from a person who is not duly empowered to register the document to the present, the same, and may be registered. See, in such a cases where any person is claiming that under such document may present such document or cause the same to be present. So in accordance with the provisions of part 6, section 32 to 35 for registration in the office of registrar of the district in which the document was originally registered. So he can, however, do so within the time period of 4 months. But this time period is 4 months. It will start from the time when he become aware that registration of such document is invalid. And we'll discuss this. I'm going to explain this. The registrar, after being satisfied that documents were accepted for registration from a person, now this person was not duly empowered to present the document. So he was not empowered, but he present the document, and if come to the notice of the person who was actually empowered to register it, he shall proceed for the re-registration of that document. And when he re-registered this document, now it has to be considered that it has not been previously registered, and if such presentation for registration was a presentation for registration made within the time allowed, therefore under section 23 to section 27 of the Act. Now 23A said that all the provision of this Act as to the registration of document shall apply to the re-registration. Now let us take a look on the example on your screen. A gift deed is presented for registration by a clerk not authorized by the donor. A gift deed is presented for registration. Who presented this? A clerk. But this clerk is not authorized by the donor to present this for the registration. And sub-registrar mistakenly registered it. Later, the person who received this gift, the donee, he received this gift, he learned that this registration is invalid. Now, the date, the time when he come to know about that this gift deed was registered by the clerk who was otherwise not authorized to register this, from that time, within the time period of 4 months, now this mistake need to be correct. So within the time period of 4 months, when the person he come to know about this, he represent the document through the proper party, that is from the donor, and the registrar re-register this document and the gift deed become valid from the original date of registration. Now let us see what is section 24. Section 24 discuss document executed by several persons at different time. Several persons are executing the document but at different time. See, where there are several persons executing a document at different times, such a document may be presented for registration and re-registration within a 4 months from the date of each execution. Now this is important. The date is each execution. Now let us understand this with the help of one example. See, a sale deed is executed by seller A on 1st January and seller B on 1st Feb. So seller A executed on a 1st Jan and B on a 1st Feb. Now in this case, the document may be presented for registration. So execution of the sale deed is through seller A 1st January, seller B said on a 1st Feb. Now this document registered presented for registration anytime up to 1st May. That is 4 months from the B's date of execution, and it should not be 1st May. It must not be 1st May. Now section 28 discuss place for registering document relating to land. Section 8 is important. Place for registering documents relating to land. All document, whatever is mentioned in section 17, subsection 1, clause A to E, covered by section 17, subsection 2, and those under section 18 where the registration is optional, clause A, B, C, clause CC, they must be presented for registration in the office of sub-registrar of the sub-district where whole or any of the part of the property affected by the document is situated. So if a document relate to a land, it must be registered at the place where the land is situated, not where the parties live or not where the parties sign the document. It is only registered in that area, district where the land is situated, not where the parties are living. So a sale deed for a land is in a village A which fall under sub-district K. So where it is supposed to be registered? In the sub-registrar office of district K. Even if the buyer and seller they live somewhere else, but the property need to be registered under the sub-district K. So far section 29 is concerned, it talk about the place for registering other document. So for document that do not relate to immovable property, not covered under section 28, such as the partnership deed, the wills, the instruments relating to immovable property, etc., they may be registered at either the sub-registrar's office in that sub-district where the document was executed or any other sub-registrar's office, but under the same state government if all executing and claiming parties they agree and they are present there. This is important. This is important. We need to understand any other sub-registrar's office. So we just talk about that the sale deed of a land in village A, if it fall under district sub-district K, it need to be registered in the sub-registrar office of district K. Section 29 said, if the sub-registrar's office is in the sub-district where the document was executed, the registration is possible there. Its clause B said that any other sub-registrar's office, it can register if all the executing and claimant, the parties, they agree and they all are present at the time of registration of that document. See, a partition, we take this one example, a partition deed executed in district A. It may be registered in district A or in district B, but the only condition that the both districts they are in the same state. If all the partners agree and appear for the registration. So according to section 29 subsection 2, a copy of a court degree or order can be registered the sub-registrar's office where original decree or order was passed or if it does not affect immovable property, then it may be registered at any sub-registrar's office within the state with the consent of the parties. So you can see example that a money decree was passed by the court in district X. It can be registered in district X or any other district in the same state if all the parties, they have given their consent for the registration of this decree. But if the decree affect immovable property, it must be registered as per section 28. Now, if the property is immovable, then it will be registered in the same district where the property is located. Now, the part 6 of the Registration Act 1908 deal presenting document for registration. Now, we'll see section 32 to section 35 deal with where the document for registration should be presented. Section 32 said, person to present document for registration, and it mentioned except the cases mentioned section 31, 88 and 89, every document to be registered under this act, whether such registration be compulsory or optional, shall be presented at the proper registration office. Who will present? By person claiming or executing under the same, or in the case of a copy of a decree or order, claiming under the decree or order, or by the representative, that is the legal heir, or assigned such person, or by the agent of such person, maybe his attorney, representative, assigned or duly authorized by the power of attorney, executed and authenticated in manner hereinafter mentioned. Now we need to read this provision with section 33 of the Registration Act 1908. Basically, section 32 deal with the persons who are entitled to present the document for registration, and it defined that who is legally allowed to present a document for registration at the registration office or at the registrar office. Now see section 33. It discusses about power of attorney recognized by the purpose for section 32. So basically, the reading of section 33 is making the understanding of section 32 clear, because there we discussed that legal representative can also present the document. Now let us see section 33 said, to define what kind of power of attorney is legally valid and acceptable when someone else present a document for registration on behalf of the executant. So only the power of attorneys are valid for registration of purpose which are given under section 33. See, when the principal resides in India, where the act is in force, so the power of attorney must be executed before and authenticated by the registrar or sub-registrar in whose district or sub-district the principal reside. Second, when the principal reside in India, but the act is not in force, so power of attorney must be executed before and authenticated by a magistrate. Then clause C, when the principal reside outside India, maybe NRI, so the power of attorney must be executed before and authenticated by one of the following: a notary public, any court, judge or magistrate, an Indian council or vice council, or any authorized representative at the central government. This is maybe for the purpose for the person or the principal who is not residing in India, is residing outside the India. Now, is there any exception to this rule? Exception is that there are few persons who don't need to attend the registration office or court to execute a document, such a power of attorney. If a person is bodily infirm, that is, he is unable to attend without risk or serious inconvenience. Second, if the person is in jail, in any civil or criminal custody, he is there. And third, when person exempt by law from the personal court appearance, that may be the dignitaries or the officers, the public officers who are exempted by the law to appear in person. Section 32A discuss the compulsory affixing of photograph. Now, where the affixing a photograph on the document is compulsory to enhance the authenticity of the document and to prevent any fraudulent transaction, especially in immovable property dealings. Every person who present a document for registration under section 32, he must affix their passport size photographs and provide their fingerprints on the document. So if a sale deed on the land is being registered, the person presenting the deed, usually the buyer or maybe their agent, must give a photo and fingerprints. Additionally, both the buyer and the seller, they must also affix their photos and fingerprints on the deed. So this is made compulsory because to avoid any kind of fraudulent cases in this kind of registration when the property is immovable in nature. Section 34 discuss the inquiry before registration by registering officer. It means that registering officer has, power. He want to ascertain the information. That's why he is inquiring before he do the registration. And subsection 1 said requirement of appearance. So a document will not be registered unless the exequents, the people who signed it, or their representative agents with proper authority, they appear personally before the registrar within the prescribed time period. So what is the prescribed time period? The prescribed time period is within the 4 months. So it is after the document is executed, it need to be registered, and the time period of registration is 4 months. So they are supposed to be appear before the registrar within the time slot of 4 months, within the 4 month of execution. Section 23, we already discussed about this. Now, this time period may be extended under section 24. We discussed 24, 25, 26. So in these sections, we discussed that at what point of a time or in what situation the time period is extended from 4 months. So if the valid ground is exists there, then within the extended time period, the persons, they are supposed to be present before the registrar. Subsection 2 discuss that when there is a flexibility in appearance. So appearance may be together, means both the parties, they can appear simultaneously, or both the parties, if they cannot appear simultaneously, they can appear at a different times. But the one condition which is mandatory, that they have to be appear before the authority of the registrar. And why this is important? This is helpful when exequent lives in the different cities or states. Now subsection 3 discuss what are the duties of registering officer. Now what are his duties? So, and what must be verified? Now he has to be seen. So when parties appear, the officer must do certain acts. What he is doing? He is inquiring what? Whether the document was genuinely executed. He satisfies himself for the identity of the person appearing, verify authority of representative, and assign the agents. Now further subsection 4, application to registrar in case of delay. Application to registrar in case of delay. So if a delay in appearance has occurred and the parties want to apply under the proviso of subsection 1, then application can be submitted to the sub-registrar. But he must forward it to the office of the registrar, because it is only the registrar who is having power to condone such delay and accept the late appearance. So sub-registrar has no power of as such. Now subsection 5, it discusses about the exceptions for decree and order. See, this section does not apply to the copies of the court decree or judicial orders, because they are already verified by the court. So they do not require the personal appearance of the parties before the registering office. Section 35 further discuss the procedure on admission and denial of the execution respectively. Again, this is the important section. This section outlines what registering officer must do when. So the execution of document is admitted by the parties, or the execution is denied, or the exequent is legally incapable or deceased. So in this situation, the registering officer, he will do inquiry. Execution of the document is admitted by the parties. Execution is denied if it is denied, or if the executant is legally incapable, or if he is deceased. So let us discuss one by one. All the executant admitted execution in person. So all those who sign the document, they appear personally before the officer, and they are either personally known to the officer, or they are identified there, or their identity is verified in front of the officer, and all confirms that they executed the document. Now this inquiry is done by the officer. Second, execution admitted by a representative or agent. So if appear that party is appearing through his legal representative or maybe by any agent, and such representative admit execution, then it is considered as valid. Third, if execution admitted by representative of deceased person. So if the person who executed the document, after the execution of the document, the person is dead, and their representative or agent, they appears and they admit that the deceased person has executed this document. If it is so, the officer verified this point, and after this verification, now it is considered as a valid. So in all above cases, the officer proceed to register the document under section 658 to 61 of the Registration Act 1908. Now further we'll see that what are the powers of the registering officer to examine people. See, this officer has authority to examine any person present in his office, to confirm identity of the executant or their representative, and to ensure that persons are admitting execution is legitimate. If the execution is denied or if disputed, then registering officer shall refuse registration. If any person who is supposed to have executed the document denied, he said, no, I have not executed this document, then the registration will be not proceed for that person. If such person appear to be a minor, underage, idiot, or he is lunatic, means they are not in a capacity to execute a document, in that situation, the execution is denied. Or further, if the deceased person representative deny execution, if the original executant is dead and their legal representative, they deny that deceased executed the document, then the registration will be refused in respect of the deceased. So if the registering officer is a registrar, he must follow the detailed procedure which is given in part 12, which deal with the refusal to registrar. So the state government may, by notification, authorize a name of sub-registrar to act like a registrar in this matter. So even a sub-registrar can handle these cases where he is especially empowered by the government to deal such cases. Now let us see what happened if there is refusal on the part of registrar. Part 12 of the Registration Act under section 71 to 77 deal with what if there is refusal to register. Section 71 said reason for refusal to register to be recorded. So when he refused to register the document, he has to be record the reason for the same, right? Subsection 1 said duty of the sub-registrar upon refusal. So when a sub-registrar refused to register a document, he must pass a written order for that refusal with the recorded reason. Second, this must be entered into book number 2, and this book is the book which preserve or maintain the refusal record. Third, this is mandatory that unless the refusal is due to the lack of any jurisdiction, if this refusal is because of the lack of jurisdiction, then the registrar, sub-registrar is not supposed to record the reason for that. But if he registered, the matter is within his jurisdiction, he refused the registration, he has to be reduced that into writing. Then endorse the document. So, the word registration refuse must be endorsed on the face of the document. So, on the front page of the document, it must be mentioned by the sub-registrar that registration is refused and the reason is recorded for the same. And further, sub-registrar provide a copy of the reason to the parties to the document, whether executant or claimant, and they who apply for it, and provide a copy free of cost and without any unnecessary delay. He has to be provide this. Section 72 and section 73, we'll discuss these two sections together. See, section 72 discuss appeal to registrar. So because sub-registrar, he refused to register the document, now section 72 said, okay, fine, you can go to the registrar office for appeal against the order of the sub-registrar on the ground other than the denial of execution. On the ground other than the denial of the execution. Section 73 said, okay, fine, you can give an application to register where sub-registrar refused to register, now on the ground of denial of the execution. Now, there is a very small difference. Here, 72 said, appeal is possible in the office of registrar from the order of sub-registrar on the ground other than denial of execution. 73 said, application can be given to the registrar where sub-registrar refused. He refused there to register on the ground of denial of the execution. Now, we'll discuss section 72 and 73 together. When section 72 apply, when sub-registrar refused to register a document on any ground other than the denial of the execution. For example, that document is not properly stamped, there is a lack of property description, the map is not there, the description of land is not there, and the presentation is not proper. In that situation, yes, he can refuse to register the document. And when section 73, when it apply, when the sub-registrar refused to register the document because person deny executing it. So, earlier the person who executed, now he said that I have not executed it. So, the party denied to execute the document, or their representative said they deny the execution. If that happened, section 73 will be applicable there. Now, who can appeal? Any person executing or claiming under the document, he can file an appeal. Who can apply for section 73? Any person who is claiming under the document or their representative, assignee, agent, anyone who is giving the power of attorney, they can apply for that the same. Now, where the appeal will go? Section 72 said, appeal lie to the registrar to whom the sub-registrar is subordinate. So, from subordinate, registrar subordinate, sub-registrar's refusal, go to appeal in the registrar office. Section 73 said, application is made to the registrar to whom the sub-registrar is subordinate. It's almost same thing. What is the time limit? It must be within the 30 days time from the date of the refusal order. So, if the refusal order is on 1st of March 2025, now you have to be count that it must be filed within the 30 days. Means before the 31st of March 2025, this must be there in the office of the registrar. Now, what is the time limit for application? The time limit is, it must be applied within the 30 days from the date of the refusal. So, the time is same, where to apply is same, then there are certain differences there. So, now what are the powers of the registrar under section 72? He may be reverse the order of sub-registrar, he may be alter the order, or he may be uphold the order. So, if registrar direct registration, then the document must be represented within the time period of 30 days in the office of sub-registrar, and sub-registrar has to be complied by the order of the registrar, and he has to be registered the document, and it will be considered that the document is registered from the very first day when that document is presented in the court of or in the office of sub-registrar. So, registration take effect retroactively, and sub-registrar has to be complied with the order of the registrar. Section 73 discuss about the requirement of application. Application must be in writing, it must be verified like a plaint, and it must be accompanied by the copy of the reason which is recorded by the sub-registrar under section 71. Now, see further, a lease deed, if it is refused, see further, registration take effect retroactively. Now, as if it occurred on the original date of presentation. Now, a lease deed is refused because it lacks a property map or is deficient in stamp duty. There is section 72 which come into picture. The parties can appeal to the registrar, challenge the refusal. So it is only because the proper map is not there and hence he refused to register the document. 72 section come into picture. What if a sale deed is refused registration because the seller denies signing it? Okay. If it is so, then section 73 come into picture because the buyer must apply to the registration to prove that there is already execution of this document between the seller and the buyer. Moving further, part 12, refusal to register, section 71 to 77. Now I am taking section 74. So procedure for registrar. This section explains what registrar does once he receives the application under section 73. So section 74 is directly connected with the provisions we discussed in section 73. Now let's see what is there in section 73. Now, what is the procedure the registrar has to be followed? If he hold an inquiry to verify whether the document was actually executed, or when he want to ensure that all legal conditions for registration have been fulfilled, right? So he will follow the procedure. What he'll do, he can do the two inquiries, verify whether the document was actually executed, or he tried to verify the conditions for registration has been fulfilled by the parties or not. Section 75, it discusses about the order by registration to register and procedure thereon. So if the registrar is satisfied that the document was indeed executed and all the legal documents have been there, all the legal requirements have been met, then he shall order the registration of that document. Now, what is the time frame for presentation? The document must be presented within the 30 days of registrar's order for registration. So, sub-registrar must then register it as per the procedure which is given in section 58, 59 and 60 regarding the endorsement, copy in register and the certificate. Pause. Now, third is subsection 3, effect of registration. Registration shall be deemed effective from the original date of document when it was first presented and not from the date of the actual registration after the appeal. Fourth, what are the powers of registrar? The registrar has the power like a civil court. He can issue summons, he can call the parties, he can take evidence, he can enforce the attendance of the parties. He can also decide who bear the cost of inquiry like court cost, etc., which is recoverable as a court decree. Now, let us understand this with the help of one example. A sale deed is presented by the buyer for registration. Buyer presented a sale deed. Seller deny execution before the sub-registrar. Now, sub-registrar refuses to register under section 35, subsection 3. Buyer apply under 73 to the registrar. Registrar, he conducted an inquiry and on inquiry under section 74, he find that seller actually executed the deed and all the other conditions, stamp duty, time frame, identification, etc., they all are fulfilled. So, the registrar issue an order under section 75, subsection 1. Buyer present the deed within 30 days and sub-registrar must now register it and registration is effected from the original date of presentation and if no denial ever occurred. Now, section 76, order of refusal by the registrar. This section simply outlines the procedure when registrar refuses to register a document. Subsection 1 discusses what are the ground for refusal. Then subsection, this clause A discuss to register a document. B said to direct registration under section 72 when an appeal is made to the registrar against the sub-registrar's refusal for a reason other than denial of the execution under section 75. Subsection 2 discuss about what is the finality. So what is the final status? So registrar's refusal under section 72 and section 76 is considered as full and final. Means no further appeal lie after this under the Registration Act. Then further section 77, it discusses the civil suits after registration's refusal. So if the registrar refuses to register a document under section 72 to 75, the affected person may file a civil suit within 30 days. If the court decree registration, the document must be presented within 30 days and the document will then be registered and treated as if it is registered from the original date. Now, what are the effect of registration and non-registration? Section 47 to section 50 of the Registration Act deal with this provision. So section 47 discuss the time frame which registered document operate. So a registered document shall operate from time which it would have commenced to operate if no registration thereof had been required or made and not from the time of its registration. So basically section 47 clarifies the retrospective effect of the registration. So although the registration may occur after the execution, but the legal effect is that from the date of execution, the date will be mentioned in the registration. So if it is document sale deed is executed on 1st of March, registered on 20th of March, so effect is that buyer become the owner on the very first day of the March when it is executed. And then we have the case Ram Saran Lal case 1961. Supreme Court held that although the sale deed is not effective until it is registered, but it can be relate back to the date of the execution, that under section 47. So on the date of execution, the buyer will become the owner of the property. Next, 48 discuss registered document relating to property when to take effect against oral agreement. So section 48 said the principle of priority of a registered document over the oral agreement in property matter. See, all duly registered non-testamentary document relating to any property, movable or immovable, shall take effect against any oral agreement or declaration relating to such property. So if the document is duly registered, it will override any oral agreement or declaration related to the same property. See, a registered document will not override an earlier oral agreement or declaration. So both conditions must be satisfied. See, the transaction is considered, the oral agreement was accompanied or followed by the possession, and transaction is considered as valid transfer under the any existing law. Now let us take one example. A entered into an oral agreement with B to sell the land, but possession is not given to him. Later, A sell the land to C through a registered sale deed. Now C is having a valid title, so registration document prevail under section 48. But what happened if A agree orally to sell land to B and he also give the possession to B? Now in this situation, when A agree orally to sell land to B, give possession to B, and later A entered into an selling agreement with the C, and through a sale deed he give this land to the C. Now when A later sell the land to C through a registered deed, but B may be protected under section 53A, and C's registered deed may not be prevail, because at the time when the A and B orally entered into an agreement, the A has given the possession of the land to B, and hence the B's the possession on the land make that registered deed may not be prevail, C's registered deed may not be prevail due to the exception in section 48. Moving further, what are the effect of non-registration of a document required to be registered? If it's so, then it affect any immovable property comprised therein, confer any power to adopt or be received as evidence on any transaction affected such property, or confirming such power unless it has been registered. So basically, we conclude that if a document must be registered under the law, like a sale deed, a gift deed, the lease, more than 1 year, mortgages, etc., and it is not registered, then it cannot affect the ownership. Means it cannot be considered valid in the eye of law, and this is especially in the immovable property. Second, it cannot empower or confer any power to the individual, and now this is in the case of adoption, because the person will not be entitled if there is no registration of that adoption, that he will not inherit any right in the ancestral property in the family where he is adopted, and it cannot be accepted in court as an evidence of such transaction if it is not registered. So there is one exception in section 49. Provisor said even if a document is not registered, it can still be used in court, but that is to prove a contract. If someone files a case to make the other person complete the deed, now I am talking about the suit for specific performance. Section 50 contain registered document relating to land to take effect against the unregistered document. So section 50 give actually priority to the registered document over the unregistered document. The provision is very simple and plain. You can give a reading to this provision, and further we'll see that what are the duties and powers of the registering officer. Section 51 to 70 deal with the powers and duties of the registering officer. 51 said registering book to be kept. 52 discuss the duties when a document is presented. 53 discuss entries to be numbered. 54 discuss indexes must be prepared, and 55 talk about the contents of the indexes, what are the contents, and it give that there are the 4 kind of indexes. This is a very simple provision. So 51 to 71 it discuss the duty and power. So I request the students just give a simple plain reading to these provisions. So they are very simple. 57 deal with the inspection and the certified copies. 58 discuss about the endorsement of the registered document. 59 talk about the dating and signing endorsement. Certificate of registration is there in 60, and completion of registration is discussed in section 61. And 62 talk about the when it is in the foreign language document. Section 63 oath and statements. So in this way till section 17 you will get what are the duties and powers of the registering officer. And with this I want to conclude that in these 2 lectures we have covered all the major and important section in the Registration Act 1908. I'm sure you taken help from these lectures. So thank you so very much.